today, run-on sentence correction. And then we'll do modifiers after that. So this is unit 4, lesson 13. And so, we talked about combining sentences. We talked about the use of, punctuation like comma. One problem you may run into is, I mentioned you want to use a variety of sentences as far as length goes: complex sentences, compound sentences, simple sentences with just a subject, verb, and your tail to complete it. But you also have to be careful when you're making those more complex sentences or the compound sentences, because you may miss some punctuation, or you may need a connecting word, a conjunction, or something like that. Otherwise, you run into a problem where the reader may not understand. You might confuse the reader by sort of like combining two sentences without the correct punctuation or a connecting phrase and whatnot. So let's see if it'll actually open all the way here. Reload the page. Probably need to restart my computer. That would probably help. All right, here we go. Yeah, so today's lesson, by the time we complete this one, you'll be able to correct a run-on sentence in your writing. And it's another tool that you'll use when you're editing after you write. See if every sentence has the correct punctuation. So let's take a look at our audio.
When you combine sentences without using the correct punctuation or connecting word, the result may be a run-on sentence. Run-on sentences are usually either comma splices or fused sentences. A comma splice occurs when only a comma connects two sentences. A fused sentence occurs when two sentences are connected without a conjunction or proper punctuation. Depending on the type of error, you can correct run-on sentences by adding a comma and connecting word, adding a semicolon, or creating two separate sentences.
So there's your options. And this is talking about two complete sentences. We mentioned yesterday with a compound sentence, you have what would be called a independent clause, right? It stands alone as a sentence on its own, but you can combine them sometimes because they have similar ideas. But you got to make sure that you don't just put a comma and you have one complete sentence, comma, another complete sentence, or so you need a word like and, or you might need a semicolon. Like I remember I talked about that can replace the word and. Use that sparingly though, or just separate them into two sentences. You have several options there. So we'll take a look here at some examples to see, and a lot of times with a run-on sentence, just like it sounds, they get really wordy. And as a reader, you're kind of looking for a break because there's something that needs to be in between the two sentences. So here they have adding a semicolon or semicolon connecting word and comma. So the incorrect sentence here, the example: Mario does not enjoy cooking. However, he made dinner for the family. When you're speaking it, it sounds close, right? But the punctuation is wrong. So instead, you need Mario does not enjoy cooking. However, right, semicolon, however, comma, he made dinner for the family. So that makes it, that breaks it up more. You can't just put a comma in front of however. One trick with however, though, this is when however falls in the middle of a sentence. You may encounter however closer to the beginning of a sentence. So if I said, let's see, my daughter doesn't like cheese on her hamburger. I, however, like pepper jack cheese, whatever. So you see there, however comes the beginning of the sentence. You would offset that with just commas. I, comma, however, comma, like pepper jack cheese. If it falls in the middle of a sentence, that's when you'd use the semicolon and colon, or semicolon and comma. If it's right at the beginning, like there's one word and then however, it's comma, however, comma. Again, though, you may not use that often. Then our second example here, add a comma and a connecting word. So the incorrect sentence I have here, the band played songs from an old album, they sounded different. All right, they're perfect example of run-on sentence, right? The band played songs from an old album, they sounded different. What you need to do to correct that is add a comma and add but. So the band played songs from an old album, comma, but they sounded different. Okay, so you're separating your ideas and you're adding contrast by putting but there. And then, of course, you could just create two sentences. So the incorrect sentence they have here, Lakshmi offered to drive, she has a new car. Right? You could feel that it's a run-on sentence. Feels like everything is smushed together. Lakshmi offered to drive, she has a new car. It's just awkward. So we can just make two simple sentences there. Lakshmi offered to drive. She has a new car, right? So there you go. That's the three rules there. You're either going to add like a one of those transitional words like however, nevertheless, or add a comma and a connecting word. Again, this is largely when you have two complete sentences. You know, how do I combine two complete sentences? There's your rules right there. You can either break them up into two, you can add a comma and a connecting word, so but, or, and, right? So our text over here says if the sentence contains two ideas, the best option may be to create two sentences, right? If you can't find, if something doesn't sound right when you're trying to connect the two sentences together, and you may have sort of like ideas that don't jive real well to combine in two sentences. So just consider, keep it simple sometimes, and create two sentences. And then sentence length does not indicate whether or not a run-on exists. Even a short sentence can be a run-on. So I ate dinner, he read a book. That is, you know, a run-on sentence, even though it's very short. What you would need to do is separate that with a semicolon instead of the comma, right? Like I said, semicolon can replace and. On paper, right? It's just a matter of a different punctuation mark. But you're going to give a sort of a different pause, and to the reader, most importantly, the reader is going to understand what that semicolon means. So if I said, I ate dinner, he read a book, with the semicolon there, you could just as easily say, I ate dinner and he read a book, right? So you could see the reader understands that you're basically saying and there. And then the second text box says, if you create two sentences to avoid a run-on, be sure that neither is a fragment. So they have to be, just like I said, run-on sentences are when you're smashing two complete sentences together without the correct punctuation or the correct connecting word. So that's going to be something we deal with comma splices as well. So if you create two sentences to avoid a run-on, be sure that neither is a fragment. Remember, a sentence contains three components, right? We keep hammering on this idea here: a subject, a verb, and a complete idea. Whatever that may be, you got to have those three elements to make a complete sentence. So just like I ate dinner, simple three-word sentence, but it has those three elements: I, the subject, ate, the verb, dinner being the completion of that idea, right? What did I eat? I ate dinner. So let's take a look at the quiz. All right. So thinking about complete sentences. Test taking tip. If a word like however or therefore is surrounded by two complete thoughts. I think I just said this. If it's surrounded by two complete thoughts, use a semicolon before it and a comma after. If it is not surrounded by two complete thoughts, use a comma before and after it. That's, and what, just like I said, that's typically going to be because it's at the beginning of a sentence, right? I, comma, however, comma, whatever the rest of the sentence is. But if you have a complete thought before that, however works a lot like but, right? It's a way, if you're using those phrases, that you can break it up, where you could use just a simply comma, but this, right? It's a transitional word. It shows contrast. So it's just something that you can use as another tool instead of but all the time. If you're running into an idea where it feels repetitious, where you're using the same words, that's another word that you can add to your toolbox. Therefore, you can also put that at the beginning of a sentence, right? But you would also set that off with a comma if it's at the very beginning of a sentence. I'm trying to think of an example here. I did not sleep well last night, period. Therefore, comma, I will go to bed early tonight. Right? There's an example for you. You could combine that into one sentence also, right? I did not sleep well last night, semicolon, therefore, comma, I will go to bed early tonight. You can use it in either situation. Actually did sleep pretty well, so I'll go to bed regular time tonight. So let's get on to the quiz. Give this a try. Let's start with Grace. You want to check out number 1 for us here.
Okay. Everyone had a great time at the show. We are going to see the band play again next month. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, replace where with end. B, insert a comma after show. C, insert comma and after show. And D, insert but after show. C.
There you go. Yep. So when you see it, right, you can tell something doesn't feel right about the sentence. Everyone had a great time at the show. We're going to see the band play again next month. Right there, everyone had a great time at the show. It's a complete thought, right? There's a complete sentence there. Next, we're going to see the band play again next month. Another complete thought. Complete sentence. We don't have any punctuation in between them. We don't have any way we're not connecting them with anything. We've just smashed them together. So that's what we need to do, is figure out what punctuation, what type of connecting word that we need. In this case, we separate the ideas. Everyone had a great time at the show, comma, and after the show, we're going to see the band play again next month. Or I'm sorry, everyone had a great time at the show, comma, and we're going to see the band play again next month. Okay. Separating our ideas, helping the reader navigate that sentence, right? We talked about a comma, how it separates sentences into meaningful units. Right here is a perfect example of it, doing its job, doing its thing. Right there when we put it after show, right? Meaningful unit and meaningful unit. All right. So C for number 1. All right. Now we get right into our drop down boxes here. Employee manual, work-related injuries. So minor injuries. Do not delay. Report all minor injuries to the department manager and the human resources department. Nilda, how are we going to break up this sentence?
One moment. C?
See, it is. We're going to make 2 sentences here, right? And I also mentioned when you want to emphasize a point, use shorter sentences. Here's a good example of that, right? So do not delay. Simple, especially when it's an imperative, when you're telling somebody to do something, short sentence work really well. Do not delay, period. Report all minor injuries to the department manager and the human resources department. The human resources department is responsible for the following actions. Oh, I mentioned a colon, right? Yesterday, how it's supposed to separate off things in a list. Here's an example of that. So the human resources department is responsible for the following actions. Colon, reporting the claim to the insurance company, referring the employee to an appropriate healthcare provider, and working with the department manager to secure any needed recovery time. So you'll see those colons when you have a longer list of items to separate out the idea. Employees must receive permission from their healthcare provider before they return to work. At that point, they can resume work-related or other duties. Tracy, what do we want to do here?
We a duty and they must duties, however. B.
So A, this case, we have a complete idea that we're starting with. At that point, they can resume work-related or other duties. Okay, so there's a complete idea. And so semicolon, however, comma, they must restrict activity so that it does not endanger their recovery. So there again, we have a complete idea, right? So they must restrict activity so that it does not endanger their recovery. Sort of some test taking tips for you. So at the bottom, they have however in each case, right? So that should tip you off that I either need a comma before and after, or I need a semicolon before and after. There's no other way that you'd use however, unless it's at the very beginning of a sentence where you just have however, comma. If it's in the middle of a sentence, you know right away that you're going to use semicolon and comma if it's separating 2 complete ideas. Okay, so you always need punctuation before and after, however, and just think about where it falls in the sentence. Okay, so duties, semicolon, however, comma, they must restrict activities so that it does not endanger their recovery. Major injuries, without delay, place calls to 911 and the security department. The security department will contact the appropriate employees and the human resources department. Sasha Gay, what do we want to put here?
D.
D, right. So again, 2 complete thoughts, 2 complete ideas. Says the security department will contact the appropriate employees and the human resources department. All right, we want to connect another complete idea to this. We need a comma, we need a connecting word. So, and they will provide a copy of the injury report. Okay, so D there. Seek immediate medical treatment at the nearest emergency facility. As soon as possible, contact the Human Resources Department to complete an incident report. Christiana, you want to try this one?
See?
Is and glad you're you're with us today.
I don't know. Yesterday I was using my phone, so I don't know if that's the reason why.
It could be, yeah. I've never used my phone for Zoom, so I'm not much help in that way. But yeah, so yeah, glad to have you back, even though you were here yesterday. So as soon as possible, contact the Human Resources Department to complete an incident report. Okay? Each sentence. Staff members will provide further counsel, complete sentence. So we're just breaking those up. Why do we do that here? Based on our options, right? So again, test taking tips. None of those other ones work. We can't just put a comma because that makes a comma splice. We need a connecting word if we have two complete ideas. Report staff members, no punctuation there. That's just a flat out run-on sentence. And then D, that just doesn't make sense because we don't need any punctuation after staff members. There's no reason to set that off. So that leaves C there for our answer. All right. So that's just what you want to think about. Do I have two complete ideas? How do I need to separate it? All right. So everybody got the answers here for quiz. Good job on those two. All right, so let's move on over to the workbook. All right, and this is stuff that honestly I like to review. Like I mentioned, I like this unit with mechanics and grammar because I'm writing my dissertation and stuff, and reviewing this is great help for me. And I always start thinking about when I get to these types of lessons, like, oh man, I better go check and see if I got any run-on sentences in my dissertation. So and that's the thing, it doesn't matter, it's mistakes we all make. The best writers will do that from time to time. We misspell things, we make run-on sentences, we have incomplete sentences, sentence fragments, and that's why you need to edit, and that's why you review as much as you can. All right, and a run-on sentence results when two or more sentences are combined with a connecting word and proper punctuation. In some run-on sentences, commas separate the sentences. That makes a comma splice, right? There needs still to be a connecting word or phrase. These errors are comma splices. In other sentences, the sentences are not separated at all. These errors are fused sentences, right? We ran into a couple of those, right? That's running right into one idea into the next, just slamming them together. You can correct comma splices and fuse sentences by adding the appropriate connecting word or words and punctuation needed, or by creating two sentences. And again, this happens when we have two complete sentences. If you have a subordinate clause or subordinate phrase, you don't need a connecting word. So if I say, although it is sunny out, comma, it's still very cold, right? That is a subordinate clause, although it is sunny out, right? That doesn't stand alone as a complete sentence. So that case, we just use a comma, okay? So remember that run-on sentences always express more than one idea. Really driving this home today. So the key is to determine how best to separate the two ideas into either one logical sentence or two complete sentences. So the text on the side says, remember that some connecting words are and, or, but, however, nor, yet, therefore, and so. The correct choice is based on the content of the sentence. That was kind of the issue yesterday when we were dealing with sentence fragments. It's like, well, we kind of have to be inside the head of the author to understand what they mean, right? How are they connecting it? Do they want contrast, or are they just adding to a sentence? So we'll take a look here and just think about those words. Am I contrasting a point, or am I adding to it? Or in an occasion, am I drawing a conclusion? Therefore would be that case. In closing would be another idea you could use. So our incorrect sentence here: the Warriors played a great game, they still lost. Okay. Add a connecting word. The Warriors played a great game, but they still lost. Right now we're using that connecting word, but shows contrast in ideas. They played great, but they lost. The next one, so incorrect. The TV cabinet came with assembly instructions. It was not easy to put together. right? Two complete ideas. The TV cabinet came with assembly instructions. It was not easy to put together. Smashing them together, no punctuation, no connecting word. So we add a comma and a connecting word. The TV cabinet came with assembly instructions, comma, but it was not easy to put together. It must have came from IKEA. So that's, you're right there, right? We have two complete sentences, again, adding contrast, right? The TV cabinet came with assembly instructions, but, however, nevertheless, it was not easy to put together. We could use any one of those in that situation. We would change the punctuation, right? If I said the TV cabinet came with assembly instructions, semicolon, however, comma, it was not easy to put together. You would do the same thing with nevertheless. Again, it's one of those weird English, rules. If I use but, I just need the comma. If I use however, therefore, nevertheless, any of those, I need semicolon, comma, separate two whole ideas. Okay, next one, wrong. She is an excellent guitarist. She probably practices a lot. Two complete ideas again. Here, you can make just two simple sentences. She is an excellent guitarist, period. She probably practices a lot. You could put and make a compound sentence. She is an excellent guitarist, comma, and she probably practices a lot. So, there's your choices. In this case, just make two sentences. And another incorrect one. Sammy plays soccer, her brother plays tennis. Okay. Insert a semicolon. Right, that lets the reader know that there's an and basically represented there. Sammy plays soccer, her brother plays tennis. That's a simple way to fix it. And again, using multiple ways to connect sentences also is a way to help your build more confidence in your writing and be a better writer. When you start, like I said, you mix up your sentences, you use long sentences, you use short sentences. You also can use these various methods in connecting your two ideas. Again, use semicolons sparingly, but it might work for a certain emphasis, just like two short sentences might work. So just think about that. The more you do it, the more you realize, it's like, okay, maybe this will work, or maybe I should go with this instead of this. All right. So let's start our workbook. All right. And we have here, a long sentence may or may not express more than one complete idea, right? It can be a really short sentence that's a run-on sentence. It could be a long sentence that's a run-on sentence. Judge a sentence by its content, not merely by its length. Great rule of thumb. A long sentence may need all the words it contains. Check carefully, right? Does it have more than one subject? Is there more than one complete idea? That gets a little more difficult when you get those long sentences, but that's going to help you understand where you may need punctuation or connecting words. Okay, here we go again. So question 1, let's go back to Grace.
I knew my dad's baseball card collection had some value. No one knew it was worth so much. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, insert comma but after value. B, insert and after value. C, insert a comma after value. And D, insert comma so after value. A.
Yeah, good job. So here we're adding a little bit of contrast, right? I knew my dad's baseball card collection had some value, comma, but no one knew it was worth so much. This is another example. Sometimes but will work better than however or nevertheless. In this case, it does sound better just to use but. But no one knew it was worth so much. And we can see right there 2 complete ideas. That's what you're always looking for in a run-on sentence. So A. Now, again, you may not have a run-on sentence. You may still need punctuation, though, right? If it's, like I said, if you have a subordinate clause, you still need to separate that as well, but you're not going to use a connecting word with it. There's our table again. I will make sure we get this up on Google Classroom, some examples and the rules. And Nilda, would you like to try 2?
Hello, let me see. The movie featured great acting in a clever script, comma, I think it will, honey, go over there, please. I think it will win several awards. Which correction should be made to the sentence? A, insert but after script. B, insert a comma after acting. C, change a script to a script. D, remove the comma after script. B?
It's C. And this one's a little weird because they put a period at the end of each. Well, so basically what's asking you to do there is make 2 sentences, right? This is kind of an awkward, the way it's presented to you. But what it's asking you there, right, is just to remove the comma and put a period. So change script, comma to script, period. I looked at that earlier and was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, but that's all it's asking you to do. So the movie featured great acting and a clever script, period, right? Full sentence, full idea. I think it will win several awards. You could change it. You could put and in there to make it to, full ideas as well, comma, and I think it will win several awards. This one looks a little weird, but that's the correct answer there, just replacing the comma with a period. If they had spelled it out a little differently, I think it would be easier to kind of latch on to the correct idea there. So C as in cat for 2. Now on to our paragraph. So heart disease and diet guidelines for healthier eating. Heart disease is a serious problem in the United States. Heart disease occurs as a result of fatty plaque deposits in the arteries that, that deliver blood to the heart. Tracy, try that one.
Yes, that delivery blood to the A hit and this position. B has and D position. C hit to this position. D hurt but this position cause the artery. C.
So A, we're just going to separate into 2 sentences. So doesn't work real well in that sentence. And sometimes you just got to kind of read through it. Heart disease occurs as a result of fatty plaque deposits in the arteries that deliver blood to the heart, period. These deposits cause the arteries to become narrow and hard. Doesn't work necessarily that well there. You would want either and basically to keep those 2 ideas balanced. In this case, therefore, doesn't, you want to keep it kind of simple. So fatty plaque deposits in the arteries that deliver blood to the heart, period. These deposits cause the arteries to become narrow and hard. This condition does not allow the heart to receive the blood it needs for healthy functioning. However, and there you see however at the beginning of a sentence, just a comma. However, comma, there is a simple way to reduce your risk of heart disease. Sasha Gay, what do we want to put here?
The C.
C, right? So, and separating the two complete ideas with comma, and it doesn't involve medication. You may be able to eat your way to a healthy heart, avoiding the complications that come with heart disease, such as chest pain, stroke, or heart attack. Eating several types of food should keep your heart healthy. These foods include fruits, vegetables, grains, low-fat dairy products, fish, chicken, turkey, beans, and nuts. Moreover, you should eat polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. Christiana, what do we want to put here?
Is it B?
D, it's B.
No, B. B?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I said B.
Yeah, so moreover, you should eat polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, period. This one kind of bugs me because this would be correct as well, right? You could make that add comma, and these good fats occur in vegetable oils. So that kind of makes me mad that they actually give you two correct ideas here, right? You could make that into one sentence by adding comma, and these occur in vegetable oils, fish, and nuts, right? But what we're doing here is making two sentences. Moreover, you should eat polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, period. These, wait a minute. Yeah, so these good fats occur in vegetable oils, fish, and nuts. Examples of food with good fats include walnuts, avocados, olive oil, almonds, cashews, and sesame seeds. This, you should limit or avoid several food items to keep your heart healthy. That should just be, you should limit or avoid several food items to keep your heart healthy. These items include sugar, processed foods that contain trans fat, and cholesterol found in some meats and fatty dairy products. You should also avoid saturated fat. Grace, what do we want to use here?
A.
A. So here, right, the choices are, they have very solid incorrect choices and one that's absolutely correct. So here, right, so you should also avoid saturated fat, period, right, complete idea. This so-called bad fat is found in some meats and dairy products. All of the other options there are super, super wrong, right? So fat, this so-called, right, just jamming two sentences together. C, that's a comma splice because we need a connecting word. And then D, we have the connecting word, but we don't have the punctuation with a comma. So A, super, super, only possible correct answer there. A, fat. All right. So we're on to the next one. So Orlando Suites Hotel and Conference Center, 8970 International Drive, Orlando, Florida. Dear Sir or Madam, I would like to obtain information about your hotel's ability to host the World Firefighters Association annual convention for 300 people from March 5th to March 9th of next year. I am the representative for members attending the convention from throughout North America. Nilda.
A.
D. So we need to have that connecting word there, and. So 4 members attending the convention from throughout North America. Complete idea, right? Comma, and I am contacting several hotels for details about accommodations, guest services, and costs. Please provide details regarding your hotel's ability to satisfy our group's room and meal needs. We will need 2 large meeting rooms for presentations. Tracy, what do we split this up? How?
The meeting room for presentation, so only the room presentation, but only the room will be need presentation and only room presentation. D.
B. So, but only, yeah. So that's the one. If you look at those 4 choices, the only one that we have correct punctuation and connecting word is B. So we will need 2 large meeting rooms for presentations, comma, but only 1 room will need video projection capability. So if all else fails, just look to see which ones have the correct connecting word or a connecting word and punctuation. The other ones don't have any punctuation, well, except for D, but they don't have the connecting word. B, we have both punctuation and a connecting word. So we will need 2 large meeting rooms for presentations, but only 1 room will need video projection capability. In addition, we want to reserve a block of 150 hotel rooms with double occupancy. Also, please provide details about your menu options. Sasha Gay, what do we want to do here?
A.
A. All right, that's the only choice we have. So we also please provide details about your menu options, period. Heart healthy menu choices are important to our members. Okay. We would also like you to provide a complete breakdown of costs, including fees for any perks you can offer. Such perks may include airport transportation, on-site parking, and hospitality suites. Naturally, we are looking for the best deal possible. Christiana, what here?
Okay. You see?
C. So in this case, so works better, right? Because it's sort of like that therefore statement. Naturally, we are looking for the best deal possible, comma, so please tell us about any special discounts or deals you can offer our group. All right, thank you for your prompt attention to this request. Okay, here we go. And our final one here, moving time packing tips. I'm a horrible mover. You made the decision to move. You've located a new place to live. Grace, what do we want here?
B.
B. So we're using that semicolon finally, right? And it's basically replacing and. You've located a new place to live, semicolon. You found a new job and made arrangements to leave your old apartment. Now it's time to pack. Packing, like any other job, is a task that requires the right tools. The first and most important tool for packing your belongings is boxes, of course. You can find good deals on boxes if you shop around. Nilda, we connect these.
C.
D. And this is, again, I don't like these because that is correct, but it changes the idea of the sentence to some degree. So you can find good deals on boxes if you shop around, comma, so look for the places with the best prices. Right? So it's that, yeah, that irks me because they gave you basically two right options. One adds contrast where one is like a therefore statement. So here we want the therefore statement. And really, I kind of apologize for this, guys, because it's, you know, this is what I mean. We don't, it's sometimes it's up to you to decide what the idea the author has. So just be careful when you run across things like that, because at first glance, right, I have two options here that would be grammatically correct. So be careful with the context of the sentence. So look around, right? So find the good deals on boxes if you shop around, comma, so look for the places with the best prices. Internet companies may offer better details than local retailers. If you've hired a moving company, the company may provide you with some boxes for self-packing. You can also ask local businesses such as liquor stores, grocery stores, or hair salons to save boxes for you. Boxes can get very expensive if you buy them new. Tracy, what do we want here?
If you buy them, a box, it can be an enhanced safety. If you buy them a new and used plastic, a new because used plastic, a new but used plastic, but new and used. And A.
Let's see. We need to have that punctuation there, the comma. So here, right, so boxes can be very expensive if you buy them new, comma, but used boxes can be free and help save trees. So there we have a little bit of contrast as well in the sentence. And there also, that's the only choice where we have a connecting word and punctuation. So very expensive if you buy them new, comma, but used boxes can be free and help save trees. Next, you will need to seal and label the boxes after they're packed. Use clear or brown packing tape and a dispenser rather than masking tape to seal the boxes. Sasha Gay, how do we connect these?
Is it D?
D, yeah. So here, separating it into two sentences. Use clear or brown packing tape and a dispenser rather than masking tape to seal the boxes, period. Packing tape sticks better than masking tape, particularly if the boxes may get hot or cold during the move. Use colored permanent markers to label every box with its contents, location in the new place, and the name of the family member. You can also assign a different color to each room for easy identification during the unloading process. Okay, so did we get all the answers for the workbook? So that one got a little tricky in some spots, right? Because context was involved. How do I compare the first part of the sentence, right? That first complete idea to the second complete idea? Do I need and or but or so or? So that one could get a little tricky, and hopefully you don't run into that in on your exam. They'll make them a little clearer cut. But in most cases, what we do see here are only one very definitive correct choice. And always remember, if I have two complete ideas that I'm going to form one sentence, I have to have a connecting word and punctuation. Okay, that's the rule. Never just punctuation, never just connecting words. Got to have both punctuation and connecting word, or split them into two sentences. Okay, so moving along, let's check on modifiers next. What do we do with modifiers? So for lesson 14 here, unit 4, by the time we finish this lesson, you'll be able to identify a modifier, use modifiers correctly to enhance your writing. So it's about where you put that modifier. That's what we're going to look at. All right, and let's listen to the audio.
Modifiers describe, clarify, and give more detail about another word or word group. Adjectives and adverbs are examples of modifiers. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun, a large dog. An adverb is a word that modifies a verb, adjective, or another adverb. He walks quickly. A prepositional phrase is another type of modifier. A prepositional phrase can modify a noun, a verb, or a group of words. The boy with the brown hair. A misplaced modifier misleads readers by describing the wrong item in a sentence. A dangling modifier describes a subject that is missing from a sentence or is in the wrong position. A modifier belongs as close as possible to the word it modifies.
So did it, notice as it sounded weird, were you able to make everything out? Or was it kind of choppy or anything? All right, so modifiers, just to go over this here. So giving you information, more information about more detail helps clarify, and they fall into several categories. So adjectives, right? We talked about adjectives are words that modify, describe a noun. Adverbs are words that describe and modify a verb. And then prepositional phrases, what you think about prepositional phrases a lot of times is that it gives something a location, at, in, or place it in time, or add something like in this case, with the brown hair. So with is a preposition, in is a preposition, out. Words like that are prepositions, and those are prepositional phrases. And then our problem here is that we sometimes put those modifiers in the wrong place. And that can be confusing to the reader or change the meaning of a sentence depending on what where we place it. So here, right, this is two ways basically that you will misuse a modifier. Here it says, I only ate one slice of pizza. So that's saying you only ate the pizza and did not also throw it on the floor, right? I only ate it. I didn't do anything else with it, is basically what that sentence is saying. You want to say, I ate only one slice of pizza. So you have to move the location of only, right, your modifier, to help the reader understand that here, simply stating that I only ate one slice of pizza meant that you had other activities that you were doing with the pizza, or other people were doing activities with the pizza. Instead, I ate only one slice of pizza indicates to the reader that, you only had one slice. Can be a little confusing sometimes. And then some more examples of misplaced modifiers. When Lucas invites friends to dinner, he tries new recipes often. So that's often isn't modifying anything there. So when Lucas invites friends to dinner, he often tries new recipes. So that way you understand that Lucas often tries new recipes, right? He when he cooks for his friends, he likes to try new things, right? So often tries, putting that modifier in the correct place. The coach gave the athletes advice on his team. That makes it sound like he gave athletes advice about his team. Okay, so instead, the coach gave the athletes on his team advice. So here we need to move advice, right? So, I'm sorry, on. So the preposition on there was located in the wrong spot. The coach gave the athletes on his team. So he's giving advice to his team rather than about his team, which is what the incorrect version is saying. Having adopted a new dog, right? Now we're dealing with dangling modifiers. Having adopted a new dog, the leash was purchased. Okay. We don't understand here who purchased the leash, right? So correcting that, saying having adopted a new dog, Jane purchased a leash. So we have to have sort of a subject in there that connects with the modifier. The other example they give, before moving to Texas, Florida was my home. What we need to say is before I moved to Texas. Oh, before moving to Texas, Florida was my home. What we need in place is before I moved to Texas, Florida was my home, right? We don't understand who is moving in the first sentence. So we add I before I moved. And that makes a complete sentence there, correct grammatically as well. Text over here. Some adverbs are commonly misplaced in sentences. These include only, often, very, almost, nearly, rarely, always, and merely. So if you use those, make sure it's modifying the correct word. It's modifying the correct thing in the sentence. Pay careful attention to the placement of prepositional phrases. Again, that's the other problem that you run into. Right, so their example, on his team, is modifying players, not advice. So if I said the coach gave the athletes advice on his team, it sounds like he's modifying the wrong word. He's modifying players rather than advice. Okay. Sounds a little tricky. But when we see some examples here and work through them, it'll help. Test taking. So misplaced modifiers can be tricky to identify when you're reading quickly. This is where you have to slow down. Underline or highlight any descriptive words or phrases, and then think about what those details are meant to describe. Okay. So our examples here. Let's see. Grace, you try number 1 for us.
All right. Although nearly over, we left the game early because the court were losing. Which is the most effective revision of the sentence? A, although we were nearly over, we left early because the courts were losing the game. B, although nearly over the game, we left early because the courts were losing. C, although the courts were losing, we were nearly over and left the game early. D, although the game was nearly over, we left early because the courts were losing. D.
Right. So although nearly over, right, we don't know what was nearly over in that phrase. So we use although, we put the game. So although the game was nearly over, now we understand what was nearly over, the game. Although the game was nearly over, we left because the Colts were losing. So D as in dog. All right. And yeah, sometimes you got to just slow down a little bit, read through them. What am I missing, right? What is going to help this to clarify this sentence? All right, how to make lasagna. Lasagna is a popular pasta dish that is relatively easy to make at home, even for inexperienced cooks. In fact, it is the perfect dish to make when serving a crowd because you could prepare lasagna in advance. And just about everyone loves it. The recipe also is incredibly flexible. Like many other classic dishes, Nelda, you try that.
Like many other classic dishes, you can. A?
It's B, so dishes. So like many other classic dishes, comma, lasagna lends itself to different variations. Let's see, A, if you say like many other classic dishes, you can make lasagna in different variations. That makes it sound like you're, how to describe this? Making it look different. So, and then the other ones, people make lasagna in different variations, makes it sound like people are in different variations when they're making lasagna. So be there, like many other classic dishes, comma, lasagna lends itself to different variations. So we have lasagna lends, we have our subject, lends, our verb, itself, talking about lasagna, to, preposition, different variations. For example, you can try out different ingredients to make either, meat or vegetarian lasagna. To make basic lasagna, you will need about 1 pound of lasagna noodles for a 13 by 9-inch pan. Basic lasagna also includes 3 cheeses, ricotta, mozzarella, and Parmesan. For the filling, Tracy, what do we want here?
Yes. For the filling, did you click? For the filling, often people use tomato sauce and raw meat. People often use tomato sauce and so see people use often tomato sauce. People use tomato sauce often. People use tomato. People often use tomato sauce and raw meat.
There you go. Yeah, so here, right, we're making sure that we are expressing that people, right, use tomato sauce. People often use tomato sauce and ground meat. Otherwise, it sounds like we're saying often people are just making lasagna rather than what they use to make it. And the other ones are also just incorrect. People use often tomato sauce. That's in the wrong place. And people use tomato sauce often, also in the wrong place. We don't understand what often is modifying. In this case, it's modifying when or how often people use tomato sauce. That's what we want to make clear. So for the filling, comma, people often use tomato sauce and ground meat. However, if you are feeling adventurous, substitute roasted eggplant, spinach, or other vegetables for the meat. Now you are ready to cook. First, let's see here. Christiana, how do we want to start this sentence?
A for apple.
Hey, so first, comma, boil the noodles in a large pot until they are barely softened. right? Here's a good example because we're offsetting that, right? If we're talking about a list, right, we're going to set that off with a comma. So the other ones here, boil the noodles in a large pot first until softened. That's incorrect. Boil first the noodles in a large pot until they are barely softened. Here, separating out first, right? It indicates to the reader what we are starting with, and that's the idea. How do I start my lasagna? First, comma, boil the noodles in a large pot until they are barely softened. A good time-saving tip at this point is to start cooking the tomato sauce, meat, and vegetables while the noodles boil. You should have your cheeses ready so that you can proceed quickly when the noodles and filling are ready. To prepare the lasagna for baking, Nilda.
A.
B. We want to start with our verb. So to prepare the lasagna for baking, right? So there's our introductory phrase or introductory clause there. To prepare lasagna for baking, layer ingredients into the pan in the following manner. That way we know what the action is. Ingredients, so to prepare the lasagna for baking, ingredients must be layered into the pan in the following manner. That's putting the verb out of place. We want that verb to start our phrase there. Layer ingredients into the pan. And then the other ones also are nonsense because layers of ingredients, we're changing layer from a verb to a noun. And then D, ingredients are placed in layers. That's also out of order. So layer ingredients into the pan. Some of those can be tricky. So there we go, B there. All right. So D for a multiple choice, then B, B, A, B. Right. So on to the workbook. All right. Like it says here, a modifier is a word or phrase that describes, clarifies, and gives more detail about another word or word group. So we have to be careful about where we put our modifier so that we are modifying the right thing in the sentence. So it should be placed as close as possible to the word it describes. There's your clue, right? If it's at the end of a sentence, if you have an adverb or prepositional phrase or something like that, that's probably out of place. Make sure it connects to the correct word that's modifying. A misplaced modifier is confusing because it is placed incorrectly and describes the wrong item. A dangling modifier describes a word, usually the subject, that is missing from the sentence or is in the wrong place. So misplaced means it's modifying the wrong word. Dangling modifier means that there's not a subject there that it's modifying. We have a modifier without a subject, basically. Another examples here. So Kara, our incorrect misplaced modifier, Kara almost ran 2 miles before feeling tired. Okay, so the correct sentence is, well, to correct the sentence, it says, ask yourself which word should almost modify, right? So in the first sentence, what that is describing is that she almost ran. So she could be walking 2 miles. She could be crawling 2 miles. Almost ran, right, puts the modifier in the wrong place. So what we want to do is make sure that the reader understands that she made it almost 2 miles. So Kara ran almost 2 miles before feeling tired. Right? The first sentence, we don't, it's sounds like she's doing some other activity than running. She almost ran. No, we know she ran. We want to make sure the reader understands that she ran. What we want to modify is how far she ran. So Kara ran almost 2 miles before feeling tired. Dangling modifier, right? So driving to work, 2 deer ran in front of my car. Were the deer driving to work? So to correct the sentence, ask yourself, who was driving to work? Okay, the deer weren't driving to work. That's could confuse the reader. So here, there's a couple different ways you could solve that. While driving to work, comma, I saw 2 deer run in front of my car. Or while I was driving to work, 2 deer ran in front of my car. See, so that first sentence, you don't understand who was driving the car. That's a dangling modifier. That modifier is just hanging out there, modifying something, but we don't know what. Okay, misplaced modifiers in the wrong location, so it's modifying the wrong word. Dangling modifiers, it's uncertain which word it is modifying. And it says here, remember that a modifier can be an adjective, an adverb, or prepositional phrase, right? It's adding detail, helping describe a person, place, or thing, or an activity. Or, and so a modifier can modify word more than one word, right? So for example, she is very tall and thin. So very is describing her as both tall and thin. So she's very tall and very thin. And then place an adverb after the direct object in a sentence with a verb and a direct object, with a verb and a direct object. So for example, read the book carefully, not read carefully the book. And that one does sound pretty awkward, right? We can kind of tell right away, read carefully the book. That doesn't make sense. Read the book carefully. So read is our action, it's our verb. The object is what's receiving the action, the book. So then we place our adverb after that. We'll talk more about subject and object. We'll have a lesson on that. So that'll help with this as well. All right. So again, making sure you put your modifier, whether it's an adverb, adjective, or prepositional phrase, in the right place, so it's describing the right object. Introductory phrases beginning with to and a verb or verb plus ing often become dangling modifiers. To correct a dangling modifier, determine the intended subject of the sentence and rewrite the sentence to include it, right? So that was our example up here. Driving to work, 2 deer ran in front of my car, right? So there's that example of to and a verb ing. All right, some more practice here. Let's go to Grace, number 1.
Okay. Many people who plan their vacations overlook the cost of transportation often. Which is the best revision of the sentence? A. Many people who often plan their vacations overlook the cost of transportation. B. Many people who plan their vacations overlook often the cost of transportation. C. Planning their vacations often. Many people overlook the cost of transportation. And D. Many people who plan their vacations often overlook the cost of transportation. A.
So D.
Oh.
Right. So here, right, obviously often is our modifier, right? We have to understand where we're putting that. So what you want to modify is the fact that they overlook the cost of transportation. Okay. Lots of people, plan their vacations. So A makes it sound like many people who often plan their vacation. So they're only doing that some of the time. D, many people who plan their vacations often overlook the cost of transportation. So there we want to make sure that we're modifying overlook. So people planning their vacations overlook the cost of transportation. D as in dog. I know these are tricky. So here, let's try this one. Nilda, let's try number 2 here.
Yes, as you can see from my resume, comma, my experience almost meets all requirements for the position, which is the best revision of the sentence. A, as you can see from my resume, comma, almost all requirements for the position are met by my experience. B, as you can see from my resume, comma, my experience meets almost all requirements for the position. C, my experience almost meets all requirements for the position, comma, as you can see from my resume. D, my experience meets all requirements almost for the position, as you can see from my resume. C?
B. So here, the way the sentence is written, right? My experience almost meets all requirements for the position. Sounds like none of her experience actually meets any of the qualifications. It just comes close. When we use B, what we're saying is my experience meets almost all requirements for the position. So that way, I meet a lot of the requirements, but I only miss a few. Very subtle. I know the difference is there. A, for example, as you can see from my resume, almost all requirements for the position are met by my experience. That's just awkwardly phrased, and that's still a misplaced modifier. C, my experience almost meets all requirements. Again, you're just switching it. So you just switch the position of where that's located. It's still modifying the wrong phrase. It's still modifying meets rather than requirements. And then the last one, my experience meets all requirements almost for the position. That's again, right? We want to make sure that we're modifying requirements, right? That almost all requirements rather than I almost meet all requirements. You know, it's a little tricky, but the way it's, you know, like it says here, you know, the way it's initially worded, none of my requirements are actually met. I don't meet any of the requirements of the job. I almost meet requirements for the job. The correct version, we meet most of the requirements, but just a few are missing. All right, so 2 is B. And then how to prepare your taxes. So the basic forms that most Americans use are the 1040, the 1040A, and the 1040EZ. Which form best suits your needs? Form 1040 is the standard tax form. Tracy, I'm gonna try that.
Yes. Form is the standard tax form. Only use it by people who itemize deduction. Used only by the people who itemize the reason. Use it by people only who use it by only people who did.
It is B. B as in boy. So here we want to say form 1040 is the standard tax form used only by people who itemize deductions. So used only by people, right? That means it's only used by a certain number of people, right? Those that itemize their deductions. And yes, it is tax time. Everybody's commenting there. Yeah, so Form 1040 is the standard tax form used only by people who itemize deductions. For simpler returns, you may use Form 1040A or the even more basic Form 1040EZ. Those in the military should refer to Publication 3, which details all tax-related scenarios for military personnel. Before starting your taxes, Christiana, use here.
Okay. Before starting your tax, you need to gather your income. B.
Yes. What's missing is the subject, right? We need to put a subject in there to understand what's being modified. So before starting your taxes, you need to gather your income and deduction documentation. Before, right? That's a prepositional. That's a prepositional phrase. Before starting your taxes, so it's telling us when, right? It's an action in time. Before starting your taxes, you need to gather your income and deduction documentation. These other choices, we don't have a subject. We're not pointing the modifier towards a subject at all, right? Only with you, only there do we have a subject that prepositional phrase is pointed towards. Okay, all right, this process may seem like a greater challenge than doing your taxes, but it shouldn't overwhelm you. The most important document is the W-2 form from your employer, which states both your annual wages and the taxes paid through the end of the tax year. You also will need proof of other sources of income, such as unemployment, Social Security benefits, state tax refunds, or alimony. Additionally, if you plan to itemize deductions, be sure that you have receipts for items such as medical or moving expenses and mortgage interest paid. Now that you have all of your documentation in order, you're ready to fill out your forms. As you proceed, be sure, Nilda, try that one.
Sure. C.
C, right? There we're using what they're talking about with adverbs, right? You is the object, fill is the verb, out the forms correctly and completely. So that comes after the verb. C. So as you proceed, be sure you fill out the forms correctly and completely. Double check your math. Use the right forms and put them in sequential order. Doing so will make it easier for the IRS to read and review your return quickly. Also, remember to sign your return. The IRS says unsigned tax returns are one of the most common taxpayer mistakes. After completing your forms and making copies for your files, Grace.
C.
C?
Yeah.
Yes, C. So after completing your forms and making copies of your files, you can mail your return, right? So that is the subject there. After completing your forms, we have another prepositional phrase, right? After, just like before, after completing your forms and making copies of your files, you can mail your return. So that's the subject there, you. All right, so moving along here. Letter to the editor. Dear editor, I am writing in response to the editorial about impulsive and reckless shopping. In my opinion, consumers must educate themselves about how stores try to manipulate and encourage their customers to buy more and spend more. How many times have you entered a store for the Nilda, what we use here?
How many times you have entered store for the D?
Right. So D, purpose of buying only one thing, right? Only is our modifier. We want to make sure that it's modifying that we're just buying one thing. So purpose of buying only one thing. Yet you left with many more items. This situation probably happens more times than you can count. To take advantage of this habit, Tracy.
To take advantage of this habit, encourage is everywhere. Retailer provide encouragement everywhere. You are encouraged by retailers. Encouragement can be found everywhere. Mm. Eh, B.
B, right. So our subject here is the retailer and the action that they're making you do. So to take advantage of this habit, right? We're talking about impulse buying, right? That you're going in and you come out with more than you want. So to take advantage of this habit, we're talking about the retailer. We're talking about the people selling to you. Take advantage of this. Retailers provide encouragement everywhere. So another prepositional phrase, to take advantage of this habit, right? All right, we need our subject there at the beginning of that phrase. So retailers provide encouragement everywhere. So B, and here's a good example too, right? So there we have a complete sentence. Retailers provide encouragement everywhere. All right, standing alone, we want some detail. So we add to take advantage of this habit. That's explaining why retailers are providing encouragement everywhere. So be there. Product placement encourages people to buy impulsively. For example, by locating basic necessities such as milk and bread in the back of the store or in the middle of an aisle. Christiana, what do we do here?
Is it A?
A, right? So again, that's the store we're talking about, right? So for example, by, there's our prepositional phrase. It's a long one. By locating basic necessities such as milk and bread in the back of the store or in the middle of an aisle. But by is what we want to focus on there, right? That's what the whole phrase is, modifying the action of the grocery designer, the grocery store designer. So grocery designers force you to walk past additional items. There shouldn't be is that a period there? Okay, that shouldn't be there. But A, right? Grocery designers force you to walk past additional items. Furthermore, grocery store designers intentionally place expensive items at eye level and make it difficult for shoppers to maneuver quickly by forcing frequent stops. They also are sure to place goodies such as candy bars or magazines near the checkout counter. In fact, retailers base their product placement on the assumption that you will buy what you see. Shopping makes it easy to buy. After all, you always find plenty of oversized near the front of the store. You may have difficulty finding a handheld basket. Helping customers shop. Nilda, let's try that one.
I just C.
B. So here, helping customers shop. our subject is the retailer, right? Helping customers shop. Retailers place bright yellow sale stickers on store shelves. Okay. So there we want that subject again, helping customers shop. Basically, retailers place bright yellow sale stickers on store shelves. B. Many stores offer special sales in which encourage shoppers to purchase even more items. We need to see the strategy stores use so that we can make smart, educated decisions when we shop. All right, that makes me think of Giant Eagle, because I go to Giant Eagle out on Sawmill, and I noticed they don't have any handheld baskets. Like, you have to get a cart or carry everything around. Now it's gonna make me think about that. Are they doing that on purpose? It's usually a Kroger, you can go right in and get your little basket. Okay, so here we go. Last one, tips for tricking out your car. Tricking out your car can be a great way to express. And Sasha Gay, I've just realized I've left you out of the loop like this entire time. So take it away.
Sorry.
C.
You say C?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So tricking out your car can be a great way to express yourself creatively and add style to your vehicle. All right. So there, creatively is our modifier. Yourself creatively. Tricking out your car, right? Tricking out is your verb, basically. Tricking out your car can be a great way to express yourself, the object, creatively, our modifier. So C. Okay. Any automobile from a classic muscle car to a brand new pickup truck can be outfitted with custom gear. Various options can make your vehicle grace.
A.
A. So various options can make your vehicle look and drive exactly as you wish, right? Otherwise, if we use like B, exactly look and drive as you wish, we're modifying the wrong object there. So A, various options can make your vehicle look and drive exactly as you wish. Make is our verb, vehicle is our object, right? So look and drive, or I'm sorry, look and drive exactly. So look and drive is the verb, exactly as you wish. However, when tricking out your car, remember to do so within the laws governing vehicles and transportation. For drivers looking to boost a vehicle's performance, a host of modifications to the engine can provide additional horsepower. Options for changing an auto's appearance, including minor paint jobs, body kits, accessories, and custom tires and rims. Alterations can be made to shocks and springs to give the vehicle the desired lowrider look. However you decide to trick out your car, you will find it helpful to develop a step-by-step plan and budget for your modifications. Identifying the labor and cost involved for each modification will help you determine which items are absolutely necessary. Carrying a hefty price tag, Nilda.
D.
C. Modifications is what we're modifying, and some modifications. Some is our modifier. Some modifications may prove too expensive. C. So carrying a hefty price tag, some modifications may prove too expensive. Your plan will help you determine the order in which to make your modifications. For example, you should, Tracy.
You should complete on-way body work before selecting new tire and rim. Complete body work on-way before selecting new tire and rim. Complete body work before selecting on-way new tire and rims. Should only complete body work before selecting new tire and rim. Always complete D.
D, okay. D is in dog there. So always, that's our modifier. For example, you should always complete body work before selecting new tires and rims. Finally, your plan will allow you to double check each modification to ensure that it conforms to all laws. All right, that is modifiers. That's a tough one. Do I need to go through everybody get our answers there? So, one rule about modifiers, make sure distance matters here, right? If it's, you have to look at sort of the location, if it's too far away from what it's modifying. Also, is there a subject missing? Driving to work, 2 deer ran in front of my car, right? Right there. It's like, ask yourself, who's driving the car? Right, that there's an idea, especially with dangling modifiers, misplaced modifiers. Look and see if that modifier makes sense where it is. Kara almost ran, right? So almost ran. Well, what was she doing if she wasn't running? She was almost running, or did she run almost 2 miles? Are we talking about her activity or how far she ran? What makes more sense there? And that can be a little tricky. Sometimes you have to slow down a little bit and take a look. Okay? We can get some more practice for that. And I have some activities on Google Classroom you can look at as well.